Hey guys, it's me again. I've got access to the Duet Abyss CBT2, and I wanted to go over all the new stuff as well as give my overall first impressions of the game so far. Starting with the characters. There are several new characters added in this beta, 2 standard 5 stars, 2 limited 5 stars, and 3 4 stars. Let's start with the 2 new standard 5 stars. Fantasio is our brand new Umbral DPS. His main focus is to turn into a beast and do damage with his claw attack and laser beam. I don't have him on my account yet, so I can't exactly do much in-depth testing with him, but after playing his character trial, he has some problems. The current drain on his ultimate is very high, even with the passive that lets him get energy back from attacking enemies. And most of his attacks aren't worth using because his best multiplier is his plunge attack, so it's just best to spam that, instead of trying to do anything else. Lady Nightfall is our other new standard 5 star, and she is a dual element character. Her skill changes elements from Lumino to Umbro and back again, and her ultimate enhances her skill to hit a wider area, do more damage, and more importantly, cost 0 energy for the next 6 casts. She also has a really cool passive where she converts any range into skill damage, which is this game's version of power strength, by the way. Her ultimate also increases her ranged weapon trigger probability, and has a passive that, based on that probability, will trigger her skill an additional time when casting it. Cool character concept, but because she is categorized as a Lumino character first and foremost, she's not able to equip any demon wedges meant for Umbro characters. Keizo is a new limited 5-star DPS, and he's a weapon master of sorts. As such, he has weapon proficiency with all weapon types. Remember when I said weapon proficiencies weren't implemented in CBT1? Well, actually I was wrong. Weapon proficiencies don't boost the character, they boost the weapon by giving them a small 20% attack buff, which is extremely low because it's multiplicative. Remember pseudo-exalteds in Warframe? Well, this character is essentially entirely based around that concept. His ultimate replaces his current melee with Thanos Sword, and it inherits your current melee stats. It does wide-sweeping AoE attacks, and after the end of every basic attack string, he randomly switches stances to a new weapon type. Those stances being Sword, Greatsword, Polearm, or Dual Blade. If you don't want to switch stances, you can just cancel the final hit of his basic attack string. Casting his ultimate again does a range attack with all his swords, and enemies hit by it take more damage. And his skill increases his attack speed, and more importantly, makes him completely invulnerable to hit stun. Xilu is the last new limited 5-star DPS added, and she is massively overtuned for this beta. Her kit is very long-winded and seems complicated, but it's actually quite simple. She has 4 different ults, and she gets a different ult based on the configuration of her skill. Tap skill gives you a Zhen talisman, and hold skill gives you a Jun talisman. If you have less than 2 talisman, her ult will do AoE damage in an area around her. If you have 2 Zhen talisman, you'll do a precision strike. If you have 2 Jun talisman, you get a skill damage buff and deal AoE damage in a small area around you. If you have 1 of each talisman, you spawn a dragon that does massive damage, and after the dragon leaves, it summons a field that does periodic electro damage. Obviously, her highest damaging ultimate is the dragon, so you should prioritize that, and only if you have the extra energy to buff your skill damage beforehand to do even more damage. Outsider is a 4-star stealth character you get later in the story, making him one of your starters. His skill makes him invisible, and he also generates fang spikes. He shoots them at nearby enemies when he uses his skill again or exits stealth via attacking. His ultimate retracts all his Fang Spikes and gives him a buff. Based on the number of Fang Spikes retracted, it will also both extend the duration of this buff and cost him a portion of his health. Any health loss will be converted into overshields. This buff makes him immune to hit stun and increases both his attack speed and his Malaise, which replaces Berserker from the last beta but only in name. He can also generate spikes by taking damage, but any healing while this buff is active just gives him overshields, because Malaise requires him to be at low health. His kit is all over the place, but he is situationally useful in some game modes. Daphne is a 4-star healer / dot character, and is also a starter that you get from the story. Her skill heals in an aura around her, and it also slows the enemy, but the slow doesn't even scale if the skill is provided on. Her ult does a larger heal, applies an attack buff to allies, and applies an attack reduction, dot, and stun to enemies. Daph also has a passive that massively boosts her ranged weapon trigger probability when using her abilities. All her healing scales with attack and skill damage. Last, we're going to talk about Rhythm. She's a 4-star DPS with a very odd kit. Her movement skill isn't anything crazy, in fact it's kinda slow. But if she has at least 30 stacks of electric energy, which is gained just from using Sanity, it goes further and does more damage, and it also increases her overall damage a little bit as well. Her ult just does damage around her in a large 50-meter range, it gives her a small movement speed boost, and it randomly inflicts a positive or negative charge on enemies. If a positive or negatively charged enemy is within 20 meters of each other, they attract like magnets. Dailies and a battle pass have been implemented, but currently they are far too easy to fulfill. A whale can expect to hit the weekly XP cap in just a day or two, and the dailies you'll probably have finished before you even finish spending your stamina. The battle pass also has a selectable premium Genimon, but they aren't implemented yet, and to be honest, the Genimon aren't worth whatever asking price this thing will end up being.
Yeah, that's a tornado, we might die. How do you feel about that?
I'm prepared.
Immersive Theater is Duet Night Abyss's Endgame Mode. The mode consists of a series of exterminate missions where you go from room to room, and at the final room, you'll have to fight a boss. There are 2 sides, so you'll need 2 teams, even for the first stage. Simple and effective endgame for the most part. If a weekly boss shows up, however, they get a new mechanic, where once they hit 50% HP, they become invincible and summon a bunch of mobs that, once killed, will make the boss vulnerable again. Which is great because that means less ammo issues, but 2 problems, however. 1, I've already experienced enemies getting knocked out of bounds or falling through the world on more than one occasion, and 2, the invincibility does not respect the boss's current state. So if the boss gets to 50% HP while stunned from stance break, congrats, you lost your damage window. The boss also doesn't put a temporary pause on its attack string, so if the boss has a specific mechanic where you need to engage with it by shooting at it, you're out of luck.
Looking up Honkai Star Rail characters and ending the video when I find porn of them.
Okay, we're gonna start like Mighty.
Covert commissions are a brand new system to the game. They resemble Warframe's relic system, but you can select one of 3 rewards at the end of the mission. Early game relics have 4 and 5-star parts, and late game relics only contain 5-star parts and mats to build them. They are also the new source of getting 5-star demon wedges as well. A currency called Secret Letters was added as a potential covert commission reward, which you can use to buy any covert commission you want. Covert commissions also cost stamina depending on what type it is. Order costs 120, Neutral costs 100, and Chaos costs 80, but those costs are subject to change. This is likely going to be the major stamina sink in the game. This system slows down the acquisition of 5 stars by a lot, but to be completely fair, getting 5-star weapons as early as day 4 of the previous beta was probably a bit much. However, due to this change, weekly bosses have far less value.
Finna whoop this whole ass, bitch! Who the fuck he think he is? It's like a big gallon of milk. The fuck?
Speaking of weekly bosses, they were tweaked. Instead of 50 times per week, you can only do them 3 times per week. But if it's your first time clearing a difficulty, it doesn't consume any weekly charges. Most of the bosses have been nerfed with the removal of insta-kill moves. However, there is one new weekly boss, and they did exactly what I feared and made Hellfire a weekly boss. All the same issues from the first beta still plagued this boss, but they also got buffed with more moves and they get significantly faster at below half health. Yeah, this boss has even more issues than before, one of which being able to use one of her new moves, Trial by Fire, which places high damaging hotspots on the ground while locking you into a cutscene for her ultimate. This has already gotten me killed more than once. Parkour feels much faster and more fluid, but it's not quite on the level of Warframe yet. Dodge charges are still a pain point, and we still have no sprint button, but overall it's a step in the right direction. Stagger as a whole has gotten nerfed, so melee enemies and bosses won't combo the hell out of you, and even if you do find yourself in a combo, you can just dodge out now. Melee enemies still do a ton of damage to you though. There is now a toggleable 2-time synergy mode that makes spending stamina a bit faster. Demon wedges for consonance weapons no longer drop from missions, they are instead bought from a store. You get currency for that store by doing the roguelike mode. This solves the issue of consonance weapon characters being at a disadvantage compared to other characters because building them would take longer, and this frees up the loot pool in a helpful way. The roguelike mode is more fleshed out with its own paths and bonuses, so you can do some silly things in there now. A beginner's guide as well as a beginner's event were added. The event gives you a 5-star bow at trial rank 45. The beginner banner lets you select a standard 5-star now instead of it being random. And you can test out each one of them with the addition of character trials. That's how I got footage for Fantasio. The game got a big graphical overhaul with a bunch of new features, so the game justifies its frankly absurd system requirements for a gacha game. DLSS was added to the game for Nvidia users as well as an increase on the FPS cap to 120 instead of 60. The game isn't very intensive on my current hardware, but I still get occasional stutters here when things need to load. The game seems to be a bit more CPU heavy than GPU heavy though, so gaming laptops might have to turn the settings down even if your GPU is beyond the recommended spec. Mobile users aren't having a good time right now, even with phones within or beyond the recommendation. The game got a large sweeping rebalance. I don't know all the changes, but the TLDR is that the things that sucked in the previous beta don't suck anymore or suck less in the 4 stars case. The overpowered stuff got nerfed pretty hard. That includes Fina and Fushu, despite being limited 5 stars, both got nerfed extremely hard, to the point where Fushu's kit was mostly gutted in favor of dealing more damage now. And Fina is only a couple percent better than Tabitha, but Tabitha is far easier to play and has better utility, so honestly you should keep an eye out for this unit in the future, because she is the only 4-star support right now with good damage amp. Oh, and Margie is no longer the best DPS in the game. They fucking demolished her. With that said, in most cases it feels like they removed a 0 from the damage number. Because of this, enemies feel a lot tankier, especially the elites and larger enemies. This may be to compensate for the fact that characters have major and minor traces now that give them extra stats like duration and range, etc. But I can tell you right now that I don't think this will be enough. Chinamon also got hit by the balance patch. In addition to the brand new ones, my beloved Fire Chicken got demoted to a 3-star rarity instead of a 5-star, and only gives like 20% of the sanity that it used to. However, I did find this really cool 5-star one that increases the XP you get from kills and buffs loot drops. The story is still getting major tweaks right now, so I'm not going to give my opinion on it. But remember when I said that they're not afraid to kill off characters, including playable characters? Yeah, the Chinese player base really didn't like that. And it turns out that the character actually survived the whole ordeal. It was just buried in a character side story. A story I happened to somehow do first. So to fix this issue, the side story is now a part of the main story in an order that sorta makes sense. However, this death scene is also skippable now for some reason. CBT2 also features the addition of the male demon MC as well as the female human one. But the female human MC uses the male voice for cutscenes currently, and is unvoiced for everything else. Speaking of unvoiced, Chapter 2 of the story is in the game, and also mostly unvoiced. There are other small additions like the addition of skins that are fully color customizable. Fishing was added as well with some exclusive rewards. The addition of Advent Spears, which are similar to Genshin's Oculi, but they aren't mandatory in any way. They are just currency for a shop with exclusive gear. That's it. And the town square being co-op for some reason, this really confused me when I saw it. So here's my full reaction. Photograph? What? Did you just see that? There's a person in my world! What? Hello? Like, you see that too, right? Who the fuck are you? Who are you? What is going on? Overall, my experience with the beta so far seems to be a step in the right direction, but the steps seem to be small. If you have any questions about the game, leave them in the comments, and I'll answer them the best I can, or you can catch me live here on YouTube, as I'll be streaming the game every time I play it until the beta ends. Anyway guys, that's all from me. I want to thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys next time. Goodbye.